Mr. Chair, make a motion that we exit the executive session.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the total grant was how much?
So the total grant was $1.281 million.
Okay.
Right now, we spent $52,500, and there's going to be, like I say, we owe Headwaters between $3,000 and $5,000 for their pre-construction stuff. So looking at it right now, we currently have $1,228,000, $663 to.
But how much is allotted for the building?
So right now, based on the grant without adjustments, the total available for the purchase of the building is $1,080,400, roughly. But if you look at when I wrote the grant, I did go with the most expensive data system and furnishings for the building. Now, grant, this is for the 4,000 square foot building, not the 5,500 square foot building. So there could be a little bit more furnishings. But I went back and looking at some other data systems that would work, we could save some money there. I think we're between 18 and 28, so I've got 23,000 there. We're gonna have to purchase the assessment and screening tools. That's the whole purpose of the building. But so that's 6,322, and then the furnishings I went through. Was it office supply?
Yeah,
office, yeah, Valley. And in talking with Chase Rich there, and looking at the square footage and the amount of offices, he thought we could furnish it for 40,000. We are still going to have to purchase the computers for the screening tools, but if we went with Plan B here, we would have, I believe, $1.151, $358 million. So that's what I was looking at. I do have a meeting set up with Blue Cross of Idaho. In talking with them earlier in the year, they do have funding available for trauma type services, and she initially said she thought maybe the data system, screening tools, the furnishings, and then trainings could be purchased with Blue Cross of Idaho funds. I have a meeting with her Tuesday. Seth Scott, in talking with him yesterday, and this is the Title I money. He feels like he's got $80,000 that could be used for furnishings for a training room, so we could use that for one of the conference rooms, possibly some trauma trainings and assessments and computers and things like that. But those monies are kind of like,
You have to request.
yeah, I've got a request. They could be there. It's not 100%. So when you look at the available purchase for the building, I think Plan B is probably very realistic. So that leaves us about $49,000 short. And I don't know what, in talking to the state, we can adjust the grant to use those funds for the full purchase. If we can commit that we would put those things in place that we've said we would through the grant, we could use it for remodel, for the purchase of the building, just as long as we have these items in place by July 1st.
So depending on the funding source the commission would like to use, we will have reporting requirements. I think there's an ARPA discussion next week.
Yep.
There's a couple different options that we could look at. I didn't prepare for this today because I thought we were going to talk about it next week. But I can come up with a couple options for the $475,000 remodel and then the $49,000 difference in the purchase, and present to you next week, or I could
That'd be fine.
attempt to.
No, that'd be fine. We're gonna cover it.
Well-
Is the division between the ARPA and the grant, we'll see how it's set up to make it the easiest and the best for reporting on both sides. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I want to go with Plan A and make it new.
Commissioners, I do need, so as Christy goes to look for money, when she mentioned the 475, is that our intent is to go with a general contractor, or are we gonna do it in-house?
I would like to see if we could do it in-house.
Oh, so 278, sorry. That's
Yeah.
even easier.
Yeah, because I was figuring with the shortage on the purchase price and to do it in-house, we'd need up to about 400,000. And if Dan thinks that we can do some of that with replacing Jeff and get somebody else, then let's go down that path.
There were just, if we switch and do the contractor, we have gone out to bid for safety and assessment, but it was to construct a $1 million building. This is a big enough shift. After considering it, right, we'd have to go back, so it would add time. But just to know the path is great.
You all right with Dan?
Yeah, if Dan's comfortable with that.
Yep.
We just need to, we have a deadline. We gotta make sure that we're there. And
Well, and if,
sooner the better.
and I don't know, if the building's purchased, I think we can start making that transition if we could be in there while the construction's going. I think we. were able
Well,
to
if we're
do
90
that.
days out, when do you have to be in the?
June 30th.
Oh,
Just that, but architect and
Right.
building permit.
might hold
we
things up.
just don't know.
Okay. Can you follow up on the grant and make sure that, just verify in writing about the prior bills that have been paid or that will need to be paid, if we can use the teen assessment grant monies for those? If not, it's just going to be a shift basically, and we can use the other revenue source that we come up with to reimburse that, and then use the grant funds to pay for this.
Yeah.
And then, I think we'll need to get, if we use the full dollar amount for the purchase, we might need to get approval to reallocate the budget. If we're not gonna pay for, just however we decide to do it. If they want us to pay as the budget outlines, we can do that, and then the other monies can make up the difference.
Okay.
So that's easy.
So I think really all I need to do, because I believe that they will be, in talking to them, supportive of however we want to do the adjustments. I just need to know, what the county prefers as far as what amount of monies is going to the purchase versus.
My preference would be follow the budget you have for the purchase of the data system and those things.
Okay.
And then, because those are smaller items that are already built into the budget, so reporting would be easy. And then with our other revenue source, we can come up with a difference for if it needs to be purchase or remodel.
Okay, so when I'm looking at the Plan A budget, or, the current grant, and B.
Whatever you're actually gonna spend.
Okay.
Is that appropriate?
Make it new, make it whole,
Okay.
Yeah.
and then we're gonna pay for it. We'll
Get her done.
decide which pool of money it's coming out of.
And we can build a contingency when we come up with the pool of money of, if you need to spend 60,000 on the data system, or if you need to spend 23, we can anticipate you needing to spend 60 out of the grant. And then if it only comes in at 23, then we can shift that difference. Or maybe, get harder cost numbers so that we can anticipate. Will that work?
Yep. I've got a meeting with the data system on Monday.
And then no strings attached with the grant.
After July 1st.
That's our building, correct?
It's our-
100%.
It's our building.
That's,
Yeah.
which then we'll have to talk about continued maintenance, janitorial, and
Yeah.
We did add some money into Dan's budget for utilities and stuff like that. That was a last minute add, just in case.
all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Exciting.
The second item I have before the board is a recommendation to award the GIS aerial imagery request for proposals. I have Heather Studley with me today. So as we went out for requests for proposals for area imagery services, we did receive 3 proposals back for evaluation, and Heather put together a fantastic evaluation team. She really utilizes cross sections of departments, including planning and zoning, her own staff GIS, and appraisal, including the mapping technicians as well. So So she was able to reach out and get different visions from other areas to evaluate the bids that were proposed. And after a thorough review, EagleView has received the greatest number of normalized points, and I would recommend awarding the Aerial Imagery Services RFP to EagleView. If there's any questions or...
Do we have a dollar amount on that?
So as they go to build the contract, there will be a little bit of, there were some options in there that they can choose to or not, so there's a little bit of, their proposed contract price is $34,491.38. So, but there was a few different options, but that'll be finalized in a contract to be reviewed by everybody before it's signed.
Okay.
But
Do
if
you
that
like
is
it?
approved, I do have,
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, EagleView has been the one that we have been using. So I expect that the contract will be very similar to the one that we've had with them in the past. There are a couple of options that we've looked at trying to add on to change detection, be able to find buildings, use the imagery to find things that have changed from one year to the next. That's where some of the extra cost may come in, but we'll see what options they have and go from there.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we award the GIS aerial imaging contract to EagleView.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
and I do have letters that you would like to sign. Okay. Yep, these letters will be sent out today. We can start working on the contract. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Next item I have for review is a draft of a surveyor roster request for qualifications for planning and zoning. This is something new that we haven't done before. And while it's not required by Idaho code due to the cost amount for the county, we did want to, in talking with planning and zoning, keep to the same consistent pattern that we do with other things. We wanted to make it open and transparent for the public. If there was anybody out in the area that was qualified to do this work, we wanted to give them the opportunity to have a relationship with us. And so we wanted to run it through the same process we would any other qualification we have. And so we built it very similar to other ones that we have done in the past, but keeping the same process that they have. They have 3 surveyors that they've got right now on staff, and they rotate on a monthly basis. That seems to work well for both the surveyor as well as Bannock County. So we're going to keep that in place. The one thing we are going to add is a contract to this piece. So part of that contract that we go into will have different steps of what is expected of the surveyor, timing of work to be completed, timing of invoicing to be submitted to us, and then also what Bannock County is then, responsible for doing. So both of us know going into the relationship, right, what they're responsible for, what we're responsible for, and then there'll also be remedies. If either side doesn't hold up, then we go through the process of remedying that. If there's ever a need, if someone retires, moves out of the area, we can terminate that contract and then fill from the roster that we already have. The one piece that I would like to discuss with the commission is in section 4, the scope of services on page 12. And that is that we would ask that this be a 3-year contract. And what I mean by that is that it would go for, this initial one would go for the remainder of this fiscal year through the end of September, and then they would automatically renew as long as both sides are keeping to the responsibilities of the contract. It would automatically renew for an additional 2 years after that. We do that so we're not every 6 months, we're not going back out for qualifications again. That allows us to be a little more efficient in the work that we do and what we can expect from the surveyors. And that also allows the surveyors just that planning ability to know, right, that they're under contract for 3 years with the county at a time.
2 questions. How do you see this impacting your services and what you guys do?
Well, we currently do it now. So I think having an actual contract, I think will help improve it. So one of the things that we've noticed over the last couple of years without a contract, our internal office policy is to have a surveyor review and complete the work within 2 weeks, but we don't actually have anything in writing to hold them to that. And so we have found that some surveyors are taking longer than other surveyors to review the work. And so having this contract in place, I think, will help that efficiency to make sure that they are completing it based on a contracted 14 days instead of just what we would like to see happen.
Okay. That was one thing I was very happy to see in there, that remedy clause. Thought that was fantastic. And then with this, does it lock in the prices for 3 years, or am I misunderstanding that?
So that piece was adjusted this morning just before the meeting. So under proposal in 4.6, we now have a section in there on their invoicing, how that they're required to submit an invoice for review and processing through planning and zoning, and that what we commit to pay for the services. Those are, I can send it back out for review or let you know here. I just did, which was easier. But it's something Tristan and I talked about this morning, super fast. But we did again want them to know and be able to expect what to receive in lieu of their services.
I'm okay, I think.
Is their standard one that they say have in place currently now? We just spell it out in the proposal. So,
Okay. I'm good.
Let's move forward.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the draft proposal for, trying to get to the top of it so I can say the right thing. What is it? The RFQ for professional land surveyor review services.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Good work.
This doesn't need signed right now, does it?
Yes.
Does it?
Shannon's just like the conductor here. Yes. You come in, you come in.
Your departments are just moving right through things as quickly as they can do it. Sorry. Oh, I thought, okay. So the next item I have before the board is a recommendation in regards to the concert production services. And in preparation for this, last time I met with the board in regards to the concert production, the board did agree and move to reject the bid that was received, and we were initially going to rebid the project. In talking additionally with Scott, there is still not clear information. So I went not back to the drawing board, but for additional resources. As I reviewed Idaho code further, I found that we do have the ability, now that we have rejected the bid, the board does have the option to declare that these services can be procured more economically on the open market. This is not something that Bannock County has done before, so I got with legal and wanted to create a process that we could go through anytime we wanted to go down this path, because Idaho code does leave it very vague. It states that upon finding it to be the facts. So then Alan and I discussed, right, what would we need to look at and review and bring to the board to be able to say that we found it to be the fact that it's more economical to do it on the open market. And while this is the first time of this, our first run, we did find 3 things that we would want to look at and review as any solicitation were to come up to the same board. And those 3 things for this one are the number of interested bidders versus the number of bids received. We felt that as we had conversations and interest in the project and in working with Bannock County, that it would tell a story if we had interested parties at the get-go, and then when it came down to the actual putting hard dollars on the committing them to tasks that they were to perform for dollar amounts, if that information was too vague in the middle, if there was too much wiggle room in there, that could then prevent people from committing to that unknown thing and potentially raise the bid to cover their costs. So in this case, we did have conversations with 4 interested bidders, and we did only receive one that actually submitted into the, based on the timeframe. The second thing we thought was critical on this was looking at historical cost data and projected cost data. On this particular project, having never done concerts before, we don't have historical cost data that we have access to. So then we started looking at projected cost data. And that is a letter that I got from Scott to kind of paint the picture of, because we don't have any contracts, right? Nothing is confirmed, but we are on those offer sheets. We do commit to this is what we are projecting, estimating those production costs to be. If those contracts were signed, we would then be on the hook to provide those services for that dollar amount. So then the letter that he submitted does go through, on average, he's looking at about $15,000 to $20,000 per show, with most of those shows being at the lower end, closer to 15. If we take the average of those at 20 and times it by 9 different shows, the budget that, or the one bid that we did receive in was more than double what we anticipated our cost to be. So again, as Alan and I reviewed, we felt that was well over kind of a 5–10% de minimis range there. But this is a fun game. To be able to be in the realm of what we anticipated those costs to be. The third thing that we are looking at is the cost of rebidding out the project. And while the hard costs, actual dollars out the door for rebidding this project would be very low. We would need to repost in the Idaho State Journal. That's minimal. There would be time on Scott, myself, and Alan, but again, hard costs out the door, very minimal to rebid the project. However, the costs of the project delay, I feel, are much higher. We need to know that production services point in order to move forward with some of these contracts, to be able to know what the riders are, to be able to then go through and to make a wonderful concert season that Scott has planned for the year. So those three things are items that Alan and I felt that we would look and review as every process went through, to be able to feel confident, I guess, recommending to the board that we move forward in this fashion. That being said, I do recommend that the board declare, I don't know what the right word is, that concert production services can be procured on more economically on the open market.
You've talked to legal, it's legal. It meets Idaho statute and code. This is new to us. It's time to move forward. That's the way I feel.
Flexibility you need to.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a lot easier for me to actually talk to people, individual people, and say, you know, this is what this specific concert's looking like. How much can you do it for?
So does
Right.
this create the pool like we just did with the surveyors for the guys that you put out like an RFQ that says all these people are qualified to run concert productions, and then throughout the year Scott can go to each one and say, can you do this one?
So it does not do that.
Okay.
But in another sense, it does create, so he now has 4 different contacts with companies that are interested in performing these services, right? As they go to build, because they'll have individual contracts for each concert.
Right.
So as he goes to say, great, are you available? Can you do this, right? Are you capable? Are you available? And the price. Then as each one of those contracts is negotiated, he now has at least an interested pool of suppliers to be able to go from and say, how is this, how is that, right? And then make the best choice for Bannock County and have it bring before the board in a contract.
Okay.
Well, it's January. I'd like things, so we are advertising very shortly. So we need to move.
Yeah. So what do you need us to do?
Pass a resolution. And I do have a draft one from that another county used for another service that I could give to legal if you needed or wanted like a framework, or if that's just something that can come back before the board. That'd be great.
It would need to be in a resolution if we're saying we're rejecting the bids. It's more economical on the open market from there. So
Okay.
we
Get
can
it
get
done.
something drafted and put in front of the commission to sign.
Let's get it done.
Will do.
Thanks.
That's the most I've talked in a long time.
The last item I have before the board is a brief procurement update. The Event Center Fireworks Show is moving right along. That we received no questions on that, and they are due on the 16th of January. The Jail Detention Center, I didn't have as much connection with contractors as I would like, and so I went back out trying to dig up more public works contractors that might be interested. I was able to find 3 of them out of Rigby. That's a huge building area as of late, and they have 3 public works contractors that I've reached out to. One of them I spoke to this morning, so I'm hoping that I've generated a little more interest and hoping that that goes well. It is due next Monday is when those bids are due. And then the last bit for me is just that we're gearing up for the Road and Bridges summer needs as they have them. They do a combination of bidding out for services and piggybacking off of various contracts. So as I work with Kyle over the next little bit, those will start filtering in. But other than that, unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Ryan.
Okay, so Ryan Bannock, Human Resources and Risk Management Director. So what I had submitted was some updates to the HR standard operating procedures, which included a couple new chapters and a couple appendix. So chapter 9, well, I guess so the changes made are the cover page, right, and the text page and the table of contents, and then no other changes until you go to chapter 9, which is page, sorry, I'm scrolling to it. Page,
There's no page numbers on it, so it doesn't make
there
any
should be,
difference.
32.
61 in our packet.
Okay.
Oh, there's, the next one has a page
This should
number.
look this should look very familiar. I've submitted proposed procedures on annual employee performance evaluation a number of times. We've got department feedback, I've got your feedback, we've consulted with Black River. I think we've really put a lot of effort into this, plus the form, plus supervisor handouts, and there shouldn't be any surprises to that chapter. Do you have any questions about it?
No.
Okay. The next, and so yeah, hopefully that can get approved and we can start training and implementing annual employee evaluation in the county. We've already kind of started with some of the training. Chapter 10 is on internships. So I don't have the exact number, but it's more than half a dozen internships. We've approved and have been using in the past year. Almost all of them have been through ISU. And as I help departments walk through the process, I decided it's time to document the process and help just facilitate making this happen. It seems like the internships have been a successful thing here. I guess a couple things just highlights on it that I wanted to point out is that I considered 3 different types of internships, ways we pay for internships, right? 1, we don't at all. Number 2 is we don't pay, but the college or university program might pay, right? And that's typically what we've been doing through the CPI program at ISU. And then the third one would be if it is paid by us, it's basically a job. And we'd set it up like a seasonal employee or part-time employee and give it the appropriate classification, and we'd have to budget for it and all that. So they're really an employee as well as an intern in that scenario.
Which one would where we add to the college pay?
Yeah.
Where would that fit?
That would be a hybrid. It'd be an employee plus,
Okay.
Anytime we're putting money, now if we pay the university, then they wouldn't be. We haven't done that.
We haven't done that.
We
since I've been
have
here.
before, but you were here, but
Yeah.
yeah, not since you've been here. Then they wouldn't be an employee, but the minute you pay you pay somebody, they're an employee.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it clarifies that, I feel. And then, it just kind of talks about the purpose, and it talks about how it needs approval by both the college or university for their academic side, as well as approval by the county and the layers of approval that needs to go through. So, if you've had a chance to read through this, great. Otherwise, I don't know if you have any questions.
The only thing I would add to this, and I don't know quite how you would do it, but the internship is supposed to benefit the student as much or more than it benefits us. So I would really like for us to have something in here that says, if you're gonna get an intern, what is your educational objective, or that you sit down with that intern and identify that.
You bet.
Because that's important for the student, not to just come in here and be worked like a dog for cheap, but that they get some educational benefit out of it and hit those objectives.
See, and in this procedure, where it does mention in the very first paragraph, internships are typically overseen by a professor and fulfill an academic requirement of the student's chosen degree program. And the county provides supervised projects for the student to complete. So the internship by nature, I could add more to that language for you.
I would like to,
And that's
see
typically
that
what
for
we do.
for the county, so that we know that when that intern comes, we're supposed to sit down and say, what are your educational objectives? How will task A, B, or C fit those educational objectives?
You bet. And we do that, and that's already part of the process, but I didn't put it in here, so that's good, good.
Other than that, if you add that, I'm okay with everything else in here.
So payment for internship under that paragraph in the A, B, and C. Under A, you have that they are an employee
Yes,
and that they are subject to county personnel policy and procedure.
correct.
If they're subject to that on all three of them, in my opinion. They got to follow our personnel policy. They got to follow our procedures, not just highlighting it in one. I'd like it highlighted that that's part of, if you're going to be an intern, our personnel policy,
You got to represent.
you're representing Bannock County at all times when you come.
So maybe take it out of that section and put it in a
Yeah,
basic section, so you don't have to have it in all three.
Okay,
yeah. It's just, that's part of being here.
okay.
So, I don't want any discussion about it. Well, it doesn't say it in my part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ryan? Ryan, maybe you could throw that under 10 point, maybe not. I was thinking maybe 10.05 where it's county approval, but maybe not. Never mind.
And they could go under one, the first paragraph, under there, just as you're putting some other verbiage in there.
Okay.
I like it because it has to be tied to education. Good.
Okay.
I was just
Yeah.
looking at the unpaid internship because, if you're looking at whether they're going to be an employee or not as an intern, especially for unpaid, the primary beneficiary needs to be the intern. So I just looked at the language there, and I know if it's tied to like an educational class or anything like that, then they get the primary benefit, and that way we don't have to worry about having to
Right.
risk anything.
Good, and, yeah, a lot of that comes from the guidance from the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Yep.
And
That's what it is.
they have a website where
Yeah.
I took the language.
I was like,
Okay.
that's like that language sounds familiar.
Ryan, you
Yeah.
cover in your
So-
other policies, you cover, so if it's an unpaid, then the county has to provide workers' comp for 'em? Is that addressed in a different spot higher up? If not, maybe address it in here,
Okay.
because we need.
It's on the form, but it's not
Well-
in here, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
have
can
it
mention
in
workers'
policy too
comp.
then. Because usually if it's paid by a university, then the university covers that.
Yep,
If it's an employee, obviously we pay it, but it needs acknowledged because we have to report it to pay it.
I think if you take that last sentence in 10.02A, all conditions of the internship must align with county personnel policy, and stick that as your last sentence under 10.01, that would satisfy Ernie's requirement that you gotta
Okay.
follow that.
I can do that.
That would make it simple.
Okay. No, that's great feedback. That's very good.
Okay,
Anything else on
that's all,
that?
that's all on that one.
Okay. So, the next thing that I included, and actually, I worked with Wes 6 months ago or more on this, and
Real
Sure.
quick, can we back up
yeah,
one section? Braden just texted me, because he's not here, and he asked on the, why does it not have a separate process for the hybrid model on the internships? So if you're,
Combine of A and B.
yeah,
We should, that's probably a good point, that we
Yeah.
should have that, because the hybrid model will require some budgetary things to set that up, working with you and all that, so that's probably a good idea to have that.
Answer the questions on workers' comp. Answer.
Yeah.
just remember that was Braden, not me.
no.
I thought about it, so I'm glad he brought it
Thanks,
up.
Braden.
I guess I'm not answering my texts, so.
Oh, I don't know if he's,
Okay, well, that's great. Good feedback. That's easy to do, and that's a good addition. Okay, so there's a safety committee charter that I had developed with Wes months ago, and I've just kind of been sitting on it. We've had safety committee meetings for a year now, and we're kind of getting into a pretty a good flow of kind of what we're addressing and what we're dealing with in the meetings, and really it covers these things. And I wanted to bring this before you, especially kind of going over the purpose and the charges. If you've read through that, when we review environmental health and safety plans, policies, and procedures, that's part of, we're developing as a group a concerted emergency action plan and health and safety procedures that have been, we've had stuff for the courthouse, and we've had some individual department, but we're trying to come together and create one. As we identify the present safety risk, that we've been doing safety walks with like the facilities department, identifying risk, and we'll have a report done on that soon enough, providing information and advice to elected officials basically, and having these members model and kind of typical what you'd expect of a safety committee to model good safety practices. So we've been working on that. We've been discussing incidents that have happened and ways to mitigate. And I think all this helps on a number of levels. It's the right thing to do. It helps with insurance. It helps with workers' comp. So anyway.
So the only thing I saw in going through this, you need a secretary. You need somebody to keep notes. It's an open meeting. It's a committee under the county, so it has to follow the open meeting laws and everything else that all our other committees or boards follow. That's the only thing that I really saw is, and then my other deal thought was, is this on our site anywhere so that people can read the minutes and have participation even if they don't attend the meetings? I mean, we have people all over the county that could go on our website,
Yeah.
look it up and participate.
We don't have that in place right now because it's been kind of not this formal. There hasn't been a charter, so
But you are meeting as a committee
we're meeting.
representing the safety committee for Bannock County.
Yeah.
never mind, that one away.
What's that?
I thought it went away.
Okay.
But-
So who would I work with on making that?
To get it posted,
I
Emma,
guess I could put it on the HR, our minutes and our charter on the website, on the HR page if you'd like.
that'd be fine. I wouldn't mind on our website if it said safety committee.
Yeah.
'Cause we haven't emphasized in the county safety. I mean,
Not enough. Uh-uh.
that should be the topic of every department head meeting, everything. What's going on, safety, any concerns? So I think that it needs to be on our website as a separate deal.
And if we want to look at them as an advisory board, I see in here, there's kind of an appointment process. You're saying here are going to be the committee co-chairs, and here are the departments that are going to be on it. I don't know if we want to look at maybe doing some sort of appointment process from the commissioners, if they're going to be making recommendations to the commissioners on kind of like appointments, or then if it needs to change, who else is going to be there, anything like that. If you want to flesh it out that way as an advisory board.
But it is an advisory board. You don't have any authority,
Correct.
Right,
so it is an advisory board.
Correct.
right.
We'll provide reports and recommendations.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if the commission wanted an appointment. Would like be able to look at, say, from these departments, here's who we want or not, or how that's going to work.
Yeah, whatever with your suggestions, let's
Okay.
go ahead and
All right.
follow, just like we do with our other advisory boards
Okay.
in parts of that.
Yeah, if you can help me with that
Yeah,
language, I just
definitely.
That's the only thing
haven't dealt with
I
that
saw
much
on
here.
that end of
So, okay. Okay, so we'll make those adjustments then. And then, so that was I didn't really consider that a standard operating procedure, so that's why I call it an appendix. And then the next one, appendix B, is the job family descriptions. And as you're aware, it's something I've been working on for over a year. And I had maybe overcomplicated it initially and decided, I created a simple version and I liked it. And so this is kind of what I'm submitting as the simplified version. That basically what this is, and I want to be careful that people understand, what this job family description is at this point in time is not changing anyone's grade or pay or job title, right? We've just created families where the existing structure can fit into it. And what it will do is from this point forward, as new position descriptions are submitted, it gives a tool for us to use to say, okay, here's where it fits within the internal structure based on the scope, complexity, decision-making, budget authority, how it compares to similar positions in this family. And it's not like something I just invented either. This is something that's a pretty standard practice in compensation, is to create these as a standard to help with evaluation. And so that's what these are. It's not changing anything now, but it's a tool to help my department. And if in the future we develop a compensation committee or something, whoever's doing the evaluations of the position descriptions, it's a tool. The other component that I foresee using this, or purpose I see using this for, is when my department does external job analysis and compares it with other counties and cities and whatever, I could look at positions in groups, and these families make nice groups. And so let's say, for example, our mechanics as a group are 20% less than other mechanics in the market. Well, then maybe I could make a recommendation that we raise the positions in this family based on the market analysis, or so that's just one example of a way we could use it as well.
When you developed this, how much involvement did the various department heads have, or did you use a group to help put this together, or did you do most of this yourself?
It was a mix. I penned it all. I wrote it all. last year during the budget time, I talked with almost every department head and elected official about positions. I told them my plan for this, tried to understand the positions as good as I could, but a lot of it was I had to do the work myself. And I did create one group to help advise on admin generalists and admin professionals. We met a few times, but people were more willing to discuss this one-on-one than in groups. And so I had a lot of one-on-ones with people. And clearly, I'm sure there's some department heads I missed, some people I didn't talk to, but I had talked to the vast majority.
I know Carrie probably wants to work some more on this, because
That's good.
she's not 100% comfortable with, she's got a lot though.
Yeah,
that's good.
I've been trying to meet with her for a month.
It's kind of
Well,
right.
And it's just
she-
our schedules.
She wanted these definitions too, because she's very black and white, kind of like me.
Mhm.
And we want to see this so that we can make these fit.
Okay.
Now that you have these, that might help her.
I would like this to go, just this, to the elected officials, and let's have an elected official meeting with Christie and talk more about the specifics now that they're here.
Do you want to go to the elected officials and department heads?
I don't want it to get that big to start with. It's up to the elected officials to talk to their department heads, in my opinion. Because if we get everybody in here, we're not gonna, it's not gonna be as personal.
Yeah.
And everybody's gonna just be looking at one specific thing, where if elected officials come and do it, I think that,
They can roll it down as far as they want and bring it back. Okay.
because has to be utilized in the budget. So the elected officials better roll it down to their department heads. So
Yeah.
that's the way I kind of would like to do it. I don't want to have such a big group that we
Yeah, I'm good with that.
get.
Plus, you'll have too many voices.
Yeah.
You won't get as much, you'll be overwhelmed with input.
No, they may,
I mean, if you have more, I mean, you're going to be overwhelmed with input, but at least it's going to be
Yeah.
no.
10 people instead of,
It's something that we've been waiting for, and I'm excited to have the beginning to start with. And
Because I know there's been other processes for classification, and one of them before I was here is we would go to an outside consultant, and they would review them. But I believe we have the talent and capacity to do it ourselves. We just need a standard to work off of, and this is really provides us that foundation to work off of.
Well, send it out. We'll put a meeting together in the next few weeks and talk about it.
yeah,
Great. So, so it looks like I have some minor adjustments to all of these. But maybe for Tuesday, I could come back with at least the internship and the performance evaluation chapters
Yeah.
for approval.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And then what,
Well,
And
and
I would
a little more
just-
work on the safety committee and wait
Just-
on the other one.
As we go through and do these things, instead of sending the whole packet, just, all we need is the ones that we,
The ones that.
I mean,
change it.
I've got this printed, I don't know how many times, every time
Yeah.
we make a few changes, so that's what I was thinking. Where I get a hard copy, I don't need all the trees.
Okay.
Okay, conversation?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you for the feedback and support.
All right, thank you. With that being